In the last video, we looked at the left side, which generally added things to our canvas. In this video, we're going to be looking here at the top bar and the layers tab. The top bar allows you to adjust existing objects. So starting here at the left side, we have our operation menu, which allows you to set what the Cricut is supposed to do with each object on there. Right now, we are providing the tools to do a cut, a score, or a print then cut operation. And we'll talk more about print then cut in a later video because that is its own slightly separate process. So the main two you will mostly be working with is cut and score. We do not at this time provide the tools to do pen or foiling functions. Also here, you can change the color of the piece of your object. So with this square selected, I could change that to purple or gray or whatever color I might want it to be. And then if I'm unhappy with the changes that I made, I can hit the undo button until I get back to my original color. Color on canvas does matter, but what is ultimately most important is the color of your material. So I can set this to whatever color I want, but when we get to the loading stage, if I load in purple paper instead of this sort of brown, I will end up with a purple cutout of a dog. So it is important to keep in mind that color matters here, and it does impact how the Cricut interacts with things when we go to the make step. But what matters more is going to be the color of your material, because the Cricut is not a printer and will not change the color of your material. You will notice that when I don't have anything selected, this top menu is largely grayed out. But if we go back in and we reselect that rectangle, a lot of those options become available again. The Arrange and Flip tab just change how things are displayed on the screen. We'll flip something else to give a little more striking visual. So if I go through and select our dog here with all of its pieces, and we go in and we do flip, you can see that the dog moves around a little bit more. And I can reset it back to how it was before by flipping again. So the flip allows you to change how things are oriented. And the offset tool creates an outline around what we have selected. So with this square selected, if I do offset, I can set if I want my offset line to be inside or outside of my object. So let's say I want it about 0.6 outside. And we'll do rounded corners. So now I have a sort of not quite oval shape around my square if I wanted to cut that out. So I could, it would give me some additional options if I needed an outline cut out around something. This can also be useful if you are trying to create stickers, but the easier way to do that is just to select what you would like to become a sticker. So in this case, we could select both of these. Hit create sticker, and then it's going to give us some options if we want to cut all the way through or just most of the way through, so you could go back and peel it later. Allows us to add a border, and then you will notice once it has been made a sticker, it flags and says this is going to now become a print then cut image, and it'll let us know if there are concerns as well. Anytime you're making stickers, it will generate as a print then cut image, and we'll talk a little bit more about that later on. The last couple of tools up here on the top bar are the warp tool. The warp tool allows you to take something and sort of adjust how it appears, so we can add some curves. We could make it extra curvy if we want. As we scroll down, maybe we want to make it into a zigzag sort of pattern, or into a sort of emerging pattern like this. So you can take some basic images and turn them into all sorts of different shapes if you would like. The last tools up here are the size and rotate tool. To resize things, there's a couple of ways you can approach that. You can either use the boxes here along the side. If you select one of the sides, so I'll just hover over, you'll see that this would only adjust up and down. It would not really allow me to adjust side to side, or if I go over to the sides, I can adjust length instead of width, so side to side. If I wanted to adjust things in proportion, I would hover over the squares in each corner, and doing that would adjust both my length and width at the same time. And you'll notice that as I scale things, it will tell me the size in that little box right above. However, what I can also do is just come up here to our size menu and manually type in the exact size that I want. So if you know you need something to be exactly 11 inches wide, you can set that. And if the little lock is clicked, you will notice the height adjusts in proportion. If I unclick that and say, hey, let's make that a little bit taller, let's go up to 8. That doesn't change my width because this isn't locked, so now I have. And you can also use the rotate tool here, so I can adjust things by a couple of degrees by clicking up or down. I can also hover outside of the boxes in the corner, so not on the box, but outside of it. And that'll give me the ability to manually rotate things, and it'll tell me the degree that it's rotated to above the object, just like when we were resizing it. All right, the last thing we're going to talk about in this video is the Layers tab. The Layers tab shows you every piece of your object, and in a lot of cases it'll show you individual pieces. So you can see, since this is a relatively complex dog design, we have a bunch of basic cuts and then a couple of groups. So I can select any one of these individual pieces, so we can see that's sort of the dog's foot over there, that's the dog's other foot. If I wanted to select multiple, I can hold Shift and click on each one I want to select. If I want to select one of these groups, it does select the entire group. So you can see when I select that group, it's going to select multiple things within it. If I click the arrow, it'll show me what's inside that grouping. But with the group selected, I can adjust multiple pieces at once. And as you'll see the same thing. So if we select the party hat, I can either move, which is the party hat and the dog's head. And then if I open it, I could see here's my selections for the party hat. Here's the grouping for the dog's head. And if I don't want those to be grouped, I can move that group out. And now the party hat is just the party hat again. I can also, within this grouping, come in and adjust individual elements. So if I wanted to adjust and make that bow maybe a little bit bigger, I want the top of the hat to pop a little more, we can scale that up. And if I wanted to be able to zoom in and see that a little clearer, we can come right down here to the bottom left. Sometimes the little menu pops up, but if you hover off of it and then come back over, usually it'll disappear, and I can use this function here to zoom in and out. And then if I select my individual elements, I can adjust how my party hat will look. And then if I'm unhappy with that scaling, we can undo either using Command Z or using the undo arrows up here. Grouping can be really helpful to make sure that things scale in proportion to each other. So when you have pieces that you're going to assemble, you want to make sure they all stay the same size. It can also help you keep things aligned. So unless I go in here and individually select elements by moving the party hat around, I don't have to worry about unaligning my individual pieces here. They will all move together unless I go in and either ungroup them or select an individual piece. So it can just help keep things a little simpler on the canvas. Along with the Layers tab, you can see the Color Sync tab, and that will list all of the colors for all of the different pieces. And this can be helpful to see what sort of colors am I going to need. So looking at this, we can see we're going to need some black, we're going to need some blue, some brown, some pink, some sort of brighter yellow, and some orangey sort of materials. And these will give color codes if you wanted to get really granular with that. But again, color doesn't matter as much here as it does the actual color of your material. So even if I set this to like a really nice gold, I would need to make sure I have a matching gold material. Color sync is more helpful for making sure that things are synced up to cut together. Because when we hit make, the Cricut will automatically group things that are the same color. So when we hit make, it's going to try and cut all of these brown pieces here at the same time. If I change my mind and I don't want the top of this party hat to be pink, but maybe I want it to be brown as well, on the color tab I can drag it up and into that brown selection, and it'll change that to brown. So you'll see here the color has changed. And again, if I'm unhappy with that, I can hit Command Z or hit the undo arrow up here. In the next video, we're going to talk about some more options here on the Layers tab, specifically the Slice and Combine functions. There are other functions we didn't talk about a ton up here. There's some more you can do. I would really encourage you to take some time to play with both this menu and this menu down here, but we'll cover this menu down in more detail in the next video.